Hello, my name is Margot Reinberger. Earlier this year, our Washington County Attorney, Pete Orput, died. While we all knew he had Parkinson's, he also had a plan on retirement. He would retire at the end of this year, and he had plans on volunteering throughout the community. But we all know that life has its twists and turns, and nothing is predictable. And one day, I found out Pete Orput had died of cancer, and I think he had only been diagnosed like 3 weeks before, if I'm right, days before. And the community was stunned. Everyone was stunned who knew him. It was taking like a larger than life personality and just taking the air out, and it just didn't seem right. Well, today I'd like to pay tribute to Pete Orput. Tammy Orput, his bride of I don't know how many years, she had wanted to come, and she just said she was not up to it, but she thanks those who did come. I'm going to ask to talk about how you knew him. Kathy, your name, the capacity in which you knew him, your title, and how many years. So you'll share.
Kathy Rockel. I was Pete's executive assistant. I worked for Pete years ago when he worked at the Washington County Attorney's Office, and he was an assistant county attorney doing drug and gang cases, and I worked for him, and then he left to do other things, and then he came back and asked me to be his executive assistant, and I was thrilled.
And you were more than that. You were his right hand, left hand. I heard that. A lot of people told me that. His wife told me that. So, I mean, you were absolutely terrific for him over the years. Tell me about you. You're going to give your title, name, and how you've known him and how long.
So my name's Kevin Magnuson. I am now the Washington County Attorney with very, very big shoes to fill. I knew Pete for quite a long time, but we were friends and kind of legal colleagues. I was in private practice in Minneapolis for a long time, and we'd get together, and he would say, "Why don't you come join us in the county attorney's office?" And I said, "No, I can't. I can't do that. I got this practice and stuff." And then I met my wife, and she said, "What? No, you're going to go there and take that job, and I'm going to come with you and make sure you do." So right. She came with me and breakfast with Pete, and he offered me a job. He said he was serious, and I took it. And that was in 2019 as an assistant, and I worked for Pete. During that time, we got to be really close. We were good friends before, but he's such an amazing leader. He just pulled people in to him. And so then eventually, when it was time for him to retire, he was thinking about it. He asked me to run in his place and keep his legacy going. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And
this was at the time he knew he was going to retire with Parkinson's with plans.
Right. He had a lot of plans. He had a lot of plans. He didn't know. I mean, none of us saw.
Oh, gosh. The trajectory, it was unbelievable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Margot, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm Sheriff Dan Starry. And I've known Pete for actually since the start of my career back in '93. And I got to first meet him and first know about him because of his work with the Drug Task Force up in Washington County, Narcotics Unit. And even back then, he was larger than life. He was no nonsense as far as holding people to account, holding those that were dealing drugs. He was harsh on them. And and so that was his reputation, and it continued through this day. But when he became a county attorney in 2012 is when I think our relationship started to grow more. And at that time, I was the chief deputy and in the sheriff's office, and so we worked with his team regularly.
We'll get into more of that later
as we want, but that's all the way through up until his passing. We were good friends, I would say.
You could tell that, Dan, when we would do programs. You could tell you guys really connected really well,
and it was genuine. It was genuine, no doubt about it.
For sure.
Gary Kriesel, Washington County Commissioner. I represent District 3 here. I first met Pete. I didn't know much about Pete, and then he filed to run for county attorney's office, and we met each other, and all of a sudden I'm out in the campaign with him. Pete was not into the, political end. He wasn't Republican, wasn't Democrat. He represented all the people, and that was his message. And I took him around to the, the McPhersons and things like that to talk. And I was so impressed with Pete. Still am. The word "I" is not in his vocabulary. He always talked about the people he worked with, and that they got all the credit. And it was just very loyal type of friend. I just so much admire and miss him.
One of the areas I'd like to discuss is his energy level. I remember going to Portland, forgetting about the fair and going, oh no, I'm going to be gone. So I arrived 2 days in and I see Pete and I go, it was like I'm AAA and he was like double AAA. And it was like I had to literally stay away from him because I knew he would drain me down because his energy was just so high. So I waited 2 days and then I approached him, and sure enough, it was a quick drain because I hadn't been that energized back. But energy level, Kathy, you saw that on a daily basis. Go ahead.
Yeah, he had a lot of energy, and no one worked harder than him. And I think that he made you feel like you wanted to work hard because you wanted to keep up with him. And very passionate about the job, but then also about all the people and the people that in the office. And that's what everybody always said, that he went around and how was everybody doing, and he cared about everybody. And as important as the job was, family came first, and he wanted everybody to know that. So,
boy, it just seemed like everything came first in his life. Kevin.
Thank you. He was just wired with a ton of energy. He was just, God made him that way, and he put everything into everything he did all the time. There was no half measure whatsoever. Everything he was in, he was 100% in, and he could just enthrall you in a conversation. He could just keep going. And sometimes you wouldn't get a chance to say a word in edgewise, but you didn't really care because it was so entertaining. But he just had this incredible energy that I have never seen anything like it. I don't think it was always a positive thing because that brain was going fast.
Correct.
All the time. And there was times when, he'd show up and I couldn't sleep last night. I was up watching his show where about shooting rats and stuff. And, you'd up in the middle of the night just trying to, get tired to be able to go to sleep. So he was, I think it was a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. Because there's times when he looked pretty worn out, but it didn't affect his energy level.
I know, amazing. In fact, one time, and before the sheriff talks on this topic, I had him on, and he took the microphone I'm sharing. Normally we have our own, and I asked him a question, and he always bragged about staff and the initiatives, and not about himself ever. No, it was always about you guys. So he grabs my microphone, and I'm like this. Well, this is a first. So he's on and on and on and on and on, and finally I said, and I took it back because for 5 minutes, that's a long answer on TV land. And so I said, Pete, may I remind you who is the host here and who's the guest? And he goes, ooh, sorry. Like he was just so wrapped into the whole world of being a county attorney. Go ahead, Dan.
No, you talk about being passionate, right? And that's Pete, 100%. That was him. And I will tell you that a meeting did not have to last more than 10 or 15 minutes with him. He had everything out on the table that you needed, and if it lasted more than 15, half an hour, it was a waste of time. He was already going. He was already moving on, right? What he needed you to know, that was already said, and you knew it. And you could have those discussions back and forth, but they were quick discussions as well, right? And I think that's what I enjoyed with him. There wasn't no messing around. When he was on a topic, he was all in, 100%. He would give it his all. And you're right, he's the first one to give everyone else the credit. And love that about him.
Right, the energy level. Pete came to Washington County like a whirlwind. His heart was just full of fire to do right, and he had a lot of great ideas, and he's seen them all through to completion. I was so impressed. He'd go up to the vets camp and speak to the veterans up there, and just everybody was captivated. They didn't want the talk to end. That's how interesting he was, and with the church group with Dan. They go to a church group. Pete just gets in his mode, and then Dan is a cleanup hitter. You know what I mean? And the crowds just loved it. Pete's message was, doesn't have to be a crowd. It could be your family. It could be 2 people. Dan and I are on our way over to your house. That's the kind of guy he was. I mean, just a wonderful person.
One of the things that stands out too is his ability to get along with different personalities. I was with 2 lawyers. They both hate each other, still do. There is Pete talking to both at a level that I just couldn't believe. It was like carrying on different topics, and they're all happy. And I'm like, this is nothing short of amazing to watch this guy appease him, totally different topics, and everyone felt very engaged. I was more in shock. I mean, so you had to see this with the different personalities he would encounter, and you might say, wow, well, this one might not work. But how was he?
He wanted to talk to anybody that came in. He'd make an appointment to talk with them, or he'd go, like you said, to the groups. He'd do a room full of people, or he'd sit in a room with 6 homemakers and talk about something. He just loved talking to the people, and they loved having him.
Just amazing how he could relate to everyone. That it was just unbelievable.
Very good relations with all the departments and other county attorneys' offices and throughout the country, really.
Oh, well, you grab that. I'm in Florida, and I'm waiting to take a shuttle from the hotel, and I see 2 shows on, and they both have to do with Pete's office. I mean, it was like, wow, this guy's, I felt like, this is cool. I know him. Two shows down in Orlando. That's pretty cool. But anyhow, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, getting on this topic of wanting to talk to people, community outreach was such a huge part. And I mean, he just fed off of meeting people. He loved coming to the fair, and I've been here with him, and he'd just walk. Well, first of all, almost everybody knew him at this point, but he would walk up to people, engage. It was always so genuine, and I think one of the things that made him so special and allowed him to connect with people the way he did is that it was all sincere. He was authentic. There was no airs about him. There was no arrogance, no big I, little you kind of stuff, as he would say. He was incredibly sincere, and when he was engaging with people, he was genuinely interested in them. And of course, that's the best thing you can do, is not be talking about yourself, but be talking and listening to other people. And so we do these community outreach groups, and he claimed, I know you were at one of the community events that we did, and he said, hey, I want to talk to all you. He said, I've talked to 6 women in a knitting club in their basement. I'll talk to any group about any topic, anytime. And he was sincere. He was that guy.
Yeah, he was, we talk about him as being larger than life. But when you talk about his sincerity and you talk about his genuineness and authentic self, that was true of Pete, right? And he was not afraid at all of anything that came at him. He would listen, right? Because he had that ability to listen. He'd think it out really quickly. And then he could talk to both sides, just like Margot, like you said, with the 2 lawyers. And we saw that time and time and time again. You have a room full of chiefs, right? And not everyone saw eye to eye, but he could relate to all of them, which was amazing. And they would all come out of there thinking they won. What a great ability to do, right? It was awesome, amazing.
Yeah, working with people, community outreach, Pete was the gold standard. He was, and the people really appreciated it. I got a lot of feedback from the communities about how much they appreciated Pete, and then Dan, being out in the community. That really was worthy.
Gary, I'll start with you. Okay, my guess is all 4 of you knew Pete was dying. I'm assuming this. I did not. It was a shock to see the announcement. When did you find out, and what were your thoughts? Like, oh, please get him to a, treatment or something. That's my first
I was always concerned because, Pete burnt the candle on both ends. I mean, he had a lot of go fast in him. He just was a human dynamo. But I had learned a couple weeks, he has some of your attorneys come down with COVID or something, a little bit of quarantining. And Pete says, well, bet you that's what I got or whatever.
Oh.
And he didn't get feeling better, so he went and got checked out apparently, and found out he had it. And it was, I attended a fundraiser. Pete was there for Kevin, and I had an opportunity to sit down and chat with Pete. And
At that point, did he know it was terminal?
oh, he knew he was dying.
Okay,
Yeah.
what was a guy who has a AAA ×2 personality like, knowing his time is expiring? I just can't even imagine.
It was about his wife Tammy and his family and
Interesting,
his
yeah.
people he worked with. I mean,
Yeah, again, right.
It was like he was leaving them, and it's almost like, he wasn't afraid of death.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, you look back at Pete's. He was a Marine, a Vietnam veteran. So that's any veteran will tell you Pete's the kind of guy I'd like to be in a foxhole with. I mean, that's extremely loyal, extremely. He's got your back. And he talked, and he died like, 3 days later from that, Kevin? But he was talking about his staff and how much, that they did for him as far as getting the programs he wanted going and that. Very courageous, very courageous. It was, he wasn't afraid of death. He was afraid of, his wife Tammy and, and things like that.
Kathy, you spent more hours probably than any one of your staff in your position and as a friend to him. What was this like? I know hard because I'm so surprised you're on the show, but Tammy tells me, I talked Kathy into it, and look where Tammy is, not here, but I love her.
I couldn't say no to Tammy, but it's hard. And he did send out an email to the staff, I can't remember at what point it was, saying that he had a horrible diagnosis. Oh. But still, you didn't think that it was going to be that fast.
Right.
And then I spent the weekend doing like a photo book for him, which I was going to do at his retirement, but I thought, hey, I got to do the photo book now because he had all plans to come back in the office and see everyone again. So I got that photo book done, but it wasn't in time because, we got the notification Sunday night. So that turned out to be a photo of memories for Tammy.
Rushing.
But, he was obviously a great boss, leader, colleague, but most importantly, a friend.
I know.
And
they just thought the world of you.
We can do the work without him, but it's just not the same.
Right. In the remaining time, I want to know, and I'll start with Kathy, what will you or are you missing most about him?
Well, that's what I would say is just the friendship. And, we had great plans to retire at the end of the year together, and he would just come in and say randomly, Kath, we got 181 days left. And I'd be like, okay, great. Whatever number he gave me. And so it's just... And then when he first died, I thought, I don't know that I can continue, but I decided to finish the year.
I wondered on that
as
too.
planned,
yes.
Finish the year,
yes.
But he's greatly missed. And
I know some of your staff I've talked to, they say, we offered to help clean his office, and then they weren't, I don't know who did. Did you?
Brent and I, yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah,
Brent, yes. Yeah. You talked to him, and it's just sad, and he said he could not be on the show, that it was really even more strong now and more real now. And like Tammy said the same thing, it's just gotten harder, and it does. And I wanted to hug you when I heard about that. It was just like, what a loss.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, there's no short answer to that question, but I know you need one.
You got a few minutes, Kevin. Kevin, Pete too.
He was a tremendous leader. And the way that was so evident is that he built an office that reflected his values. And as a result, because everyone shared the same values with Pete, we all had those values in common as well, which made for an unbelievable office culture like I've never seen before. It's just an incredibly unique place, and it's all because of Pete, because of the people that he cultivated.
I agree.
And picked.
And hand selected, right?
He hand selected them, and there was a hiring process too, so there were a lot of voices.
But there were people he knew that was really
Pete, he recognized the characters in these applicants that he wanted, as well as sometimes he reached out to people that he wanted. But the thing is he put managers in place that could run that office. So when he wasn't there, it didn't miss a beat. I mean, even though we missed him terribly, I mean, it didn't miss a beat, which is a sign of a tremendous leader.
Yes.
And then as people moved on to become a judge, and a couple of them became judges and things, new people came into the leadership positions, and the bench is so deep. They're doing a phenomenal job.
Great.
So, I mean, that talks about that ability when he left. So, I mean, I miss that is not something that goes forward. Yeah, we've got that ability, but Pete just had this tremendous sense to lead that it's just almost impossible to compare with anyone else.
I get it.
And then of course, just on a personal level, just that deep friendship that was so much more than work. It was what was really going on in your heart. And
I think the honor that he selected you is even more meaningful now. I mean, really.
We thought we were going to be together for a long time, and I kind of thought he might be hanging around the office, pick up a couple murder cases every now and then. So I fully expected.
He probably does hang out, looks at the files.
Yeah. So not having him here, has been really tough. But on the other hand, it's also, and he's always said, you're going to do it, just be yourself, and that's what it's forced me to do.
That's great.
So,
Dan.
I'll take a different route. I'll say his use of vocabulary. What a wonderful personality, and the use of vocabulary. I mean, he would say some words. I'd write it down and go up and look into the computer to see what it even meant.
Great.
And that was everywhere that he went, right? I mean, he had a lot of colorful language too that he utilized perfectly. And I think when I sit back and I look at everything, it's his genuineness, it's his friendship, it's his just being real, and being real to me, being real to my family, and I think in my agency, the community, I think that's what I'm going to miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to end kind of on what I consider a high note, and that's not the passing of Pete Orput, but the celebration of his life. I mean, what he did in the short time he was at Washington County was phenomenal. You look at his sex trafficking initiative, working with Dan and other agencies, getting rid of the pimps and that, rescuing young ladies that are trapped, without a lot of hope. I want to talk about Pledge to Graduate. I attended a few of those where the county or the attorneys all got together, chipped in some funds to buy iPads for kids if they pledge to graduate. This summer I went to the event up at the Stillwater High School. I seen the pride in that mother and the pride in that daughter when you got the county attorney speaking about this, the principal talking to her. I mean, that's a life event that family, that kid and that mother will never forget. His work on veterans. Pete was not about, he was about justice, not punishment. And he always looked to see if there was a pathway for second chance. That's what Pete was about. He wanted somebody, not a violent criminal, but somebody that did something wrong, and if they could find a way to correct that, and Pete would be behind him, give him that second chance in life and get him on the right pathway, and the Veterans Court, these guys come back troubled from overseas and that. Pete was a Vietnam veteran. He knows it. He knows what they go through, and he was looking for, I don't know what it's called, Kevin, a different, pathway for a veteran that they don't have to serve time in that, but maybe they can do community, whatever, turn their life around, and that's what I will always miss about Pete, and how much I admired that man. He's loved his office, deeply in love with Tammy and his family. We're all going to miss him.
I mean, he changed a lot of people's lives, no question about that, and certainly he can say, oh, he'll never be forgotten, but I mean, I really believe he won't be, and larger than life would be definitely the word to describe Pete Orput. And Pete, we miss you. I'm very spiritual, and I have a feeling he's hearing all this, so we miss you a lot, and God bless you.